All right. Welcome, everybody. Looks like we are live. So thanks, everybody, for joining. You are here for GTM Hot Takes. This is Rev Genius's new show powered by our partner, Seamless AI. Seamless's prospecting tools help you connect directly with your ideal customers so you can build your sales pipeline, shorten your sales cycle, and close more deals at scale. Shout out to Seamless. We could not do this without them. Before we hop into it, I'm going to have everybody go around the horn here really quickly and do a quick introduction, and then we'll jump into the hot takes. Leslie, you are next to me on mine, so let's let you lead off.
Great. I'll happily get us started. Morning, everybody. I am Leslie Vanetz, the founder of the Sales Led Go-to-Market Agency. We help organizations with their outbound sales strategy, processes, and enablement. And I'm here for some hot takes. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Molly, let's have you go next.
Perfect. Molly Bodensteiner. I'm the VP of Operations at Sound, and I am excited to be here today because I'm going to coin myself the LinkedIn loser of this group. So very excited for everyone's take and probably to learn what I'm doing wrong here. So glad to be here.
Molly, you and I will be in competition with each other on that one. All right, Adam, probably the star of LinkedIn posting. You are muted, Adam. All right, Shannon, we're going to have you go while Adam tries to work on his mic.
Sure. So my name is Shannon. I am a fractional CMO and an advisor of early stage B2B tech companies. So I work with seed and Series A founders to help them define their why does it matter and really understand their go-to-market, their messaging, positioning, and help them build really high-performing marketing teams to be able to raise more money. Or if they're bootstrapped, just keep doing what they're doing. But I'm super excited to be here. I have so many thoughts about LinkedIn. So happy to share them.
That's good. All right, Adam, let's see if you got to know.
No.
It's so weird, but he was just talking to us.
I know. I could have sworn Adam does this type of thing all the time.
This is our chance to take him. So let's go.
Okay, hot take number one, Adam.
No, we still got nothing, Adam.
Maybe leave and come back.
Yep. We're going to let Adam try and join back in. And in the meantime, we are going to go ahead and jump into the show. We'll let Adam introduce himself here in a minute, assuming he can get back in here. All right. So. All right. So first hot take. This is episode 4. There is no career without a personal brand on LinkedIn. So hot take 1: LinkedIn is a waste of time. Focus on your real job and your real career. It will be great. So let's see. Anybody have a burning one for this one, or I can just call somebody out?
I'll kick off. I'll jump in. We'll see. Actually, Adam, are you back?
Hey, we got Adam's.
All right. Still working.
There he is.
Cool.
There we go.
I am Adam J. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Revenue Reimagined. Obviously, we would not work with tech companies if we didn't have tech problems. We are a go-to-market agency that specializes in actually being hands-on operators versus those consultants that just hand you pretty slide decks. We actually do the work with you to help you bridge the go-to-market gap. I am not the LinkedIn expert here. I am just shamelessly trying to ride Leslie's coattails and be as good as she is.
All right, Molly, take us away.
Yeah, so LinkedIn waste of time, focus on your job without focusing on LinkedIn. I think, my hot take on this is, LinkedIn, as much as we think about this as brand, think about where you get information from and grow your career, right? You should always be earning and learning. And to me, LinkedIn is where you're learning. Whether you're posting and engaging is one thing, but if you're consuming content and leveraging the platform, that's your resource for how you grow in the most, in my perspective, the most consumable way. So if you're just focusing on your job, you're focusing on your company and probably not as much focusing on yourself and your growth and your development, which you tend to get from external sources versus, your day job. So if you're okay being complacent and probably stagnant and where you're at, great. But if you want to grow, you want to earn and learn, you've got to look for those external sources as well as those people you can learn from.
Leslie, you look like you were itching to chime in there.
Oh, I know. I just thought that was brilliant. I maybe have like an adjacent hot take, twofold. One, it depends what you're doing on LinkedIn. Because if you are just showing up and playing like LinkedIn games every day, which is the feature that none of us asked for, just bring back pinned comments. That's probably not the right activity to be doing on LinkedIn to grow your career. And I think like something that I was giving Molly snaps for is that LinkedIn is an amazing source of learning, but one of the traps I see folks fall into is just like scrolling, really consuming information at this like very kind of peripheral level and never asking themselves, is this even meant for me? So then they're spending time on LinkedIn just leaving like trolling comments. And I'm like why are you here? Like, you don't even work in this industry, go somewhere else. Or they're like getting all this information, but they're never translating it into something that matters to them and to their job.
Yeah, I know that's one of my biggest issues with LinkedIn is, the people chasing the algorithm, and it feels almost like a race to the bottom on that side of things. And it just turns me off. And I mean, if I'm honest, it probably just gives me an excuse to not do something that I don't like doing anyway. But anyway, it at least gives me an excuse for it. Adam, what's up, man?
Yeah, I mean, you got to use it the right way, like anything, right? I think that if you're, to Leslie's point, if you're going on just to troll people, or I didn't even know LinkedIn games existed, your boss probably ain't going to be too happy. My philosophy is I think everyone should want to build a personal brand. Everyone should want to learn from LinkedIn. It's when and how you do it. Don't be at 20% of quota and spending 6 hours on LinkedIn. Probably a recipe for disaster. But if you're using it right to get knowledge, build connections, and grow your business, LinkedIn's super powerful. Not to mention the people you're going to meet. I never would have met Leslie if it wasn't for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Awesome. Shannon, wrap us up.
For sure. So I can speak as someone that is probably more of like a micro LinkedIn influencer. So I have, I am active. I have content, people engage with it, but I definitely don't have like the volume of followers that Leslie or Adam have. But I will say when I saw my career start to take off was when I started sharing the things I'm learning in my professional career on LinkedIn. Since that day, I have never applied for a job. And that is something that I think is really like something that people don't think about is that you are consistently applying for jobs by putting yourself out there and really talking about the things you're learning. And I actually found LinkedIn when I was in business school, feeling like I didn't know how to share like all these like really cool things I was learning and how I was applying them because I went to business school part-time. So I'm applying them in my full-time job. I'm learning all this stuff and I'm like, oh, have other people experienced this? And like, I can't talk about work on Instagram. That's weird, right? Like, so where can I talk about work? And I think that's where I found a huge value in, if we're really answering the question of like, is it a waste of time? For me, it was the only time to be able to spend to grow my career and be very, very thoughtful about what I shared, who I engaged with, and being really, I hate the word authentic because it's so weaponized and overused now, but I'm not trying to make like connections. Like I literally am interested in learning about what other people are doing. And my entire business now runs from LinkedIn, the whole thing. And I don't even have 4,000 followers. Like I have like something near there. Right. So I think there's a huge benefit to building yourself as a candidate, even as someone that doesn't look for full-time jobs anymore.
All right, great. So I'm going to have Pragya put up on here a poll, and between each hot take, we're going to have the audience chime in with who they think had the hottest take. And so we'll tally these up at the end and decide on who had the best out of all of them. Do we have a fourth person on here? Okay, it's scrolling. There we go. All right, Adam, Shannon is out to a heavy lead.
Shannon, you're killing it.
Nobody liked my take. To be fair, I voted for Molly.
All right.
I clicked my own name, but I didn't know that's why I was doing it. So I'm sorry. I accidentally added myself.
Well, I
it's
think it's
me.
safe to
Get rid of
say
the
that
poll.
Shannon has enough of a lead right now to declare her the hottest take of take one. On that bombshell, if we'll take the poll down, I'll share hot take number 2. All right, hot take number 2. If you're not active on LinkedIn, you can forget about getting hired in cool companies. So this piggybacks off of what Shannon was just saying on that side of, you're out there, you're applying for that next position, you're generating that awareness whenever you do that. And so, Shannon, given that that was so close to what you just said, I'm gonna not go with you first. And so, Adam, let's hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do hiring for a lot of our companies that we're doing business with, and I don't look at resumes anymore. I looked at LinkedIn. I want to see not just people's job history, but I want to see what they're talking about. I want to see who they're engaging with. I want to see that they're positioning themselves as a thought leader. Do I think that you're not going to get hired at a cool company? I'm going to piggyback off Shannon and ride her coattails for a moment. If you're using LinkedIn right, you don't need to apply at a company. People are going to come to you and they're going to apply to you to have you work with them. So you have to be active, yes, but it's not just going on and posting. It's what you're engaging with, how you're using the platform, not trolling people. It's like Facebook or anything else, right? Like we used to look at Facebook to make sure that people weren't crazy that we're hiring. Now we're looking at LinkedIn as well to make sure that they are connected into our space and that they are actually adding value and could add value to our customers.
Great. Leslie?
I mean, it depends on what you consider cool, right? Like if you're only trying to work at like big, sick, like sexy, like tech, like sales tech SaaS brands who also live on LinkedIn, then yeah, like if that's your definition of cool, if those are your career aspirations, you're doing yourself a serious injustice by not being active on LinkedIn. But if you consider cool to be like Caterpillar, it probably is not going to matter as much. And I also think it matters much more later in your career, maybe that like after 5 years, say, because you have more of a portfolio and a point of view you can bring to LinkedIn. But for a lot of jobs, like particularly the development jobs that all these tech companies need to survive, they're not hiring you because you're a dev on LinkedIn saying like, well, I do coding. They're hiring you because you have experience. They're hiring you maybe for the degree that you have. Like you see the same thing in consulting. And a lot of people might say that companies like Accenture are like the cool brands. So I'd be really clear about what you think is cool and then deciding, are those brands living on LinkedIn? And if that's where I want to work, then it is a good use of my time to be on LinkedIn. Otherwise, it still may be a good use of your time, but not for that specific outcome, maybe more for like inbound headhunting sort of job opportunities like Shannon mentioned.
No, I think it's a great point. I mean, know your audience, know where they live, know what they're looking for. And so, I think in a lot of cases, especially in the space most of us inhabit, LinkedIn's incredibly important. But for those that are looking outside of sort of this niche, it may not be so much so. Shannon, I'm going to have you go next because I'm going to test the theory as to whether if who goes last has a leg up on the poll.
I think that's probably true. And I actually feel like we should just give my votes to Leslie because I agree with everything she said. So I very much like constantly, I get this question a lot. I actually spoke at a college recently to early career professionals about how to build their own personal brands. And there is very little insight to share when you don't have context on work, right? So it is, I say this about getting your MBA too. It is very hard to do that. So I think there is a huge value in following the correct people on LinkedIn and using it as a channel to communicate with companies that you're really interested in. It's much more effective often than going through just like a typical apply kind of with a resume. It's like, can you find the hiring manager? Can you talk to them? So I would use it more as like a communication vehicle than a publishing vehicle. So I still suggest you use LinkedIn. It's just a very different strategy than, when you're, as Leslie was saying, 5, 8, 10 years in and you're building your own kind of like niche. I think that's very different. But I do think LinkedIn is still a critical place to go, even for any company, right? Like if you're trying to talk to an executive or a CEO, all of them typically have LinkedIn profiles. So even for informational interviews, like to understand what they do, to understand, like I think it's a really cool way to be able to connect with folks, but I don't necessarily think you need to be a publisher on the channel. And I totally agree about the cool company thing. There is definitely this, like, there are LinkedIn companies, right? We all know who they are, and we all know, like, and you see when they hire people, you're like, oh, I could have watched this, I could have predicted this, right? Like I knew that company was going to hire that person because they have very similar overlaps in audience. Genius. You hired your influencer. So smart, right? Like that makes complete sense, right? But I think there's very few of those companies. It sounds like you think, like we think there are a lot because there are our whole visual, but there's very few of them in terms of how many jobs there are out there.
Yeah. Molly, wrap us up.
Yeah, absolutely. So really aligned with what everyone said, it's social proof's the new reference check, right? When you're hiring, like that's what you're going to look at. Look at how you apply for jobs, right? One click on LinkedIn, put my LinkedIn and let that copy my resume. Like that is your digital resume. So as much as there's the posting and the networking and like the connecting, there's also like how you position just your professional work history on LinkedIn to be found, right? For those different opportunities as well. So like that's your digital resume out there. And if you don't have it, right, like you're a ghost. So how can you be expected to be found, right? So I think from like the job posting perspective, like that's one piece of it, and where you're at in your career and those components. Like if you're early stage and like still looking to grow and you don't have a LinkedIn, like huge miss, right? Because like how are you going to be found? But then there's the next step of it of like how do you really position yourself and build your brand and share your knowledge, but also network and grow and identify kind of those next steps. So it's career currency. I mean, that's really what it is.
Yeah, I'm reminded every time I have a conversation with somebody that's starting a job hunt, I'm like, I've never once gotten a job by going in through the front door, by just submitting a resume, whatever. And it's like LinkedIn is one of the most powerful tools for using that networking, figuring out where the connections are. And it's almost always the second, if not third level connection that gets me in the door and gets me a job. And so if you're not going that route, like I honestly, God, don't know how you get in and get a job the other way. I know people do it, but that's never worked for me. I certainly don't have the attention span or the dedication to go do the hundreds or even thousands of resumes it takes to go in that way. All right, probably you want to put up our poll for this round. All right, let's go ahead and have the audience drop in their votes. Spinning the ever popular. Leslie's out to the lead on this one. Let's see if she can maintain it. I'll give it just a few more votes. All right. I think that's probably a safe lead to call that one for Leslie.
Thanks, Shannon.
All right, let's go on to our third one. All right. If your CEO founder is not active, your sales team will struggle selling your software. I'm going to extend this one just slightly further. I think this is an interesting take on it to ask if your CEO needs to be doing that. But I think we can also extend it to, especially if you're a salesperson, do you need to be actively posting on there in order to be able to sell? So I think there's two angles to this. Do you have to, sort of on the hiring side of things, if you don't have a presence there, are you going to be able to sell just as, are you going to be able to get hired? And then how important, how critical is it to have your CEO out there, with a presence on LinkedIn? All right. We'll stop presenting that one. Adam, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think it depends what you're selling and who you're selling to be honest, more than anything else. Going to the specific question, if you're selling B2B software, in Leslie's words, are you selling these sexy brands? Yes, I think it's important that your CEO is seen as a thought leader, is driving thought-provoking content and business to the brand as a whole, and positioning what the company can do, and more specifically, the problems the company solves, right? There's a couple CEOs like Gal from Aligned,
like
Amit
Adam
from
Robinson.
Dom. Adam Robinson at RB2B that have done a really good job of this, of building a brand and showing the problems that they solve. So the first part, B2B sexy SaaS, 100% you want your CEO to drive the brand. As a rep, this is where it gets a little dicey, right? Like I work with people on building personal brands, and I think there's a balance. No one wants the rep who gets online every day and posts about, oh, Adam J Consulting is the best thing in the world. Come work with me. Oh, the sales-led GTM agency is amazing. Click here for a demo. Do I think that you want to be on LinkedIn posting content? Absolutely. You want to be seen as a thought leader who deeply knows the space, who is adding value to your followers, who is driving information that can help them make decisions, and don't mention your company. By doing it that way and being that thought leader, what you're doing is you're making people want to engage with you and have conversations with you that will lead to the problems you solve, because what you're posting about is the real problems that people are struggling with and how you can help them. If you want to go online and post every day and tell them to, come click your demo and come to your site, you're going to see your business tank. No one wants that.
Can I go next? Because I have a
Sure.
alternative take. I have such a strong opinion on this, and it is that absolutely and unequivocally, you do not need to ever post anything, not a single piece of content on LinkedIn, to be successful at using LinkedIn as a social selling tool. Like full stop.
100%.
And it really gets under my nerves when people go out there and they try to sell people that they have to publish their own content in order to do that. Particularly because so many people, I'm a perfect example of this. I didn't grow up in SaaS. When I started my own company, that's the first time in my entire career that I sold to the sales persona. And I'm not going to get online and start publishing content like I'm an expert on procurement. Like I'm an expert on what it's like to be a Fortune 100 CFO. So there are a lot of ways to show up on LinkedIn that aren't resharing company content, that aren't posting about something. So if you feel called to post, do it, but please, please, please don't fall into the narrative that will have you believe that in order to be an effective social seller, you need to post content. So I think that's one issue. I would also say that all CEOs, regardless of whether or not their ICP that they're selling to exists on LinkedIn, should be publishing content, because LinkedIn, above all else, is a hiring platform. And even if they are not publishing content that attracts business, like revenue, they are publishing content that is being viewed by millions of potential employees, and the ability to attract the best of the best in terms of employees because they see your content, they feel like they know you, they look at you as an aspirational leader. That's worth a lot.
Can I just vote for Leslie now and leave?
I actually have a counterpoint to Leslie. When I normally, last time I gave her my my points, I actually disagree about the CEO point. So I work with companies to build founder brands. And a lot of what happens is that every founder believes that founder brand is a LinkedIn program. They're like, but I've been trying to post on LinkedIn, doesn't work, I hate it. I don't know what I'm doing. It's because their ICP is not there. And the founder actually wants to talk to their customers first. So if you're building a founder's brand, or CEOs might be slightly different, but founder's brand, I think it is critical that you figure out what channels, I call this a watering hole map. You figure out what channels your customers are in first, and you start building their platform there first. If they find it so easy to post on LinkedIn, and a lot of them do it for investors, right? Just to show that they're doing things, fine. I don't think it's strategic. I think it's fine. They can continue to do it. But if you're trying to build a successful company and speak to your customers, I fundamentally believe, unless you're selling rev tech and potentially HR tech, that LinkedIn is not it. And I think it's very discouraging to a lot of founders that want to build a brand that just feel like they can't figure that out. It's because it's bad. That's why you can't figure it out. It doesn't make sense. So I think there's I understand the idea of, I've actually never thought about the hiring point, but I just think I work all early stage and they don't have time.
What's your early stage, Shannon? What is the
Series
revenue?
A and below.
Okay.
10 million and below.
Yeah.
So I think there's it's a very different game down here, right? And they only have a certain period of time, right? And so In terms of sales reps, I don't have a lot of feelings about that. But I think there's, because I don't know. I'm gonna let other people that work with enabling sales like critically understand that. But I feel very strongly about the founder position, that you really need to focus on channels your customers are in before you focus on LinkedIn.
I've worked for a lot of companies that I'm like, I just don't want the founder to post on LinkedIn or anywhere, to be honest with you. Like, it's better for all of us if they say nothing publicly, right? But to the point of like feeling like you have to do something to build the brand, right? Like, we're all savvy consumers of content, and this, like, you can tell when it's not authentic, right? You can tell when every single day at 9 a.m. there's, you know, a picture and some like inspirational message from a CEO that's like just a rinse and repeat that we're using to, again, build the brand without having thought behind what the brand actually is and what we're trying to do, right? And I joke because I texted somebody literally yesterday and I was like, I feel like I should just post what I ate today on LinkedIn, right? Because like that's the type of content like you're seeing people share there. And it's like, really, like, what's the purpose? What are you trying to achieve? Like, how are you trying to position yourself? Like, what I'm going to say, like, what's selfishly, like, the what's in it for you, right? And you're trying to accomplish, and like really trying to align that. Yeah, Leslie, to your point, like, what knowledge did you add, right? When I think about, you know, the sales reps, again, we're all smart consumers. Like, I tend to know if an SDR comments on my post, they're trying to sell me, right? And I'm going to get them in my email with something else, or they're going to be like, great thing, blah, 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 right? But looking at, you know, the salespeople that like I follow, even if I have done business with the company or I haven't, are the ones that are like sharing their learning, right? They're sharing like what's working. Like there's this knowledge to the point that they're adding that's building like that credibility. And then when you think from the recruiting standpoint, when I'm like, man, I know I need to go hire a great SDR, like, who are the ones that I feel like are the great SDRs because of how they're positioning themselves on LinkedIn and like how they're building that brand. So that's my 2 cents there.
I had one quick thing for Molly. I save my like very snarky takes for TikTok because that just feels like a more appropriate place. Literally yesterday, I had a video, Molly, that was like, okay, is it just me? Or if you look at these founders' posts and there's like 12 comments, or 10 of them just from like super thirsty sales reps versus like people that are actually there to consume the content and gain the knowledge?
Or they're their employees, right? Like that's the other thing I look. It's like, oh yeah, are we posting this and then saying like, everybody in the company, please go like and share this information so I boost this, right? Like,
Yep.
Because in the first hour, LinkedIn loves you if you get the most comments and the most engagement in the first hour. So you tell all of your folks to
The
go
full-time job to
Totally.
amplify.
All right.
join the pod.
Let's-
Don't join the pod.
All right, let's put the poll up for number 3. We will not have time for number 4, so I've got a feeling that we're going to need to post a poll for hottest takes overall as a tiebreaker in case, unless we get lucky and we have somebody that previously won one for this one.
I feel like the poll for overall needs to be like whole team just did great.
Except
We're
Adam.
all
Leslie,
winners.
who's gonna win?
Participation trophy. All
Except
right,
that.
we are neck and neck on this one.
I voted for
Killing it
Shannon.
today.
Wow.
We're trading off votes, Leslie.
All right. I don't even know what to do with this. So,
I think I can send Shannon a gift and Shannon can send me a gift.
Perfect.
We'll just congratulate each other.
we'll call you two the co-winners.
Like, she does have 40,000 more followers than I do, so maybe you should listen to her.
All right. Well, on
this
this very unclear bombshell, it's been a great discussion, even though I don't know who to declare a winner at this point. But thank you guys so much for coming on. This has been great. Thanks for Seamless for sponsoring this and making this possible. And we'll be back next month with another Hot Takes. Thanks, everybody.